makes me want to stop and cry. I recall the day it took you away. I'm blue, I'm lonesome too. When I hear the whistle blow, I want to pack my clothes and go. The lonesome sigh of a train going by makes me want to stop and cry. In the still of the night, in a pale moonlight, the windy morning cry. These lonesome blues I just can't lose. I'm blue, I'm lonesome too. When I hear the whistle blow, I want to pack my clothes and go. The lonesome sigh of a train going by makes me want to stop and cry.
People have always kind of been at a crossroads of defining bluegrass. I like your definition. I like that it should be associated directly with Bill Monroe.
It's the rhythm. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's the rhythm that he played that was completely different, the rhythmic impulse in him. And that has to do, with just, a lot has to do with his physical being. I mean, he was an imposing guy back in his day.
Yeah, I heard somewhere, it might have been Mark Embry that was telling me that back when he was a little bit younger, he would kind of, as a way to show off, carry all the guys in the group on his back. And I don't know if you've ever seen that or ever heard.
Well, it was, what I saw of it, or what I heard of it, was he would put a cross tie, railroad cross tie, across 250-gallon oil drums and get the band to stand on that cross tie, and he'd get under it with his shoulders and lift up on it like that, anything beyond that. But I saw him do some stuff. I wrote about it in my book, What I Know About What I Know. And another thing, too, is I'm explaining all this stuff that I know about bluegrass. I've got a series of videos at Radford University at the McConnell Library down there. They're free to watch. They cost nothing. They came to my house wanted to do a documentary. A friend of mine named Bud Bennett came to my house and wanted to do a documentary on my banjo playing, and I said, man, what I know about banjo playing you can put in a shoebox, but I do know something about the ensemble sound of bluegrass music. So they wound up coming up to the house for a week, 7 days, 7 days, something like that, and just turning on their recorders. And I think I can't remember, John Hildreth, I think it was the one who edited it down, and he said he didn't do a whole lot of editing. There wasn't any more than an hour cut out of me talking. But the thing in its entirety is between 6 and 7 hours. There are 5 episodes of it to watch. The title of it is The Origin and Development of Bluegrass Music as a Pure Creative Art Form. And it dwelled exclusively on I put a lot of stuff about some of the others who had accompanied him along the way in there, but mostly it followed his music and the way that he perceived music being. The remainder of the stuff, it's just the same old stuff is just undergoing, like I said, it's either country music or it had its verges on rock and roll. I was in the Newgrass Revival for about a year and 3 or 4 months at one point, and I played bass in between Ebo Walker and John Cowan coming in the band. And you know, we did Leon Russell and Jerry Lee Lewis and stuff like that, and a lot of the jam band type playing too, where there were to be extended solos on With Care from Someone, or Sam doing Orange Blossom Special, or some of this other stuff, you know, there. But that's where I got looking at that. And it became more. It's like the fusion musics that started happening in the late 60s. Some guy I got into it with, well, I hadn't been too awful long ago. He asked me, well, why can't we play that old bluegrass just like we did in the 40s and 50s? And I just told him, because it ain't the 40s and 50s no more. You know, we ain't got no more little cabin homes on the hill. We got little trailer parks down by the road. And the bottom line is, those guys, no matter their lack of technical proficiency, you know, despite the fact that Lester played an E major against Earl's E minor in Foggy Mountain Breakdown, despite the fact that in the original cut of Molly and Ten Brooks, they had folks going to the 4 chord at a different time in that thing. Despite all of that stuff, these guys were artists, and they were simply a reflection of their times. Well, the times got uproarious in this country along about the Vietnam era. And if you'll notice the music stuff, you know, ever since this side of Dave Brubeck's Take 5 out there, jazz has gone into some pretty ego-inspired wild places out there. And it's just like sort of what the jam band music is to me. That's sort of an ego interpretation of things. Let me show you how many different ways I can twist this melody and still hold it within the same chord progression, you know. So anyhow, that music to me is chaos. But you look at the nature of our society, that post-war 10 to 15 years after the Second World War, before the Vietnam started, the chaos really rolling again. And that's what the music has. It's only a reflection of the times we're living in. Chaotic nature of what it is. And these guys, it don't matter who there is out there. You take a look at that kid Billy Strings out there right now, is just blowing the doors off of everything. And you know, at the same time you hear him with that, or see him with that fabulous show and the light show and the technical just the technical accomplishment that's on there as far as the electronics and the lighting of putting on a show. And then on top of that, you got that little guy who's or he ain't no little guy and he ain't no young guy anymore. I think he just turned 30. But he's blowing the doors off of it. He's a great picker. He's a great, great picker out there on top of the thing. I personally think he's the greatest thing to come along in string band music since Bill Monroe. But to me, my definition of bluegrass music, that's not what he plays. He's playing string band music and just putting on a show for you to see out there.
So do you think that some of these groups that are more progressive and that are doing, like the jam band groups that you mentioned, maybe some of these others, should there be a better way to define them, a word that's not bluegrass?
Yeah, it's called string band music. I mean, it doesn't have to have the demeaning connotation of hillbilly that it did back there. It's string band. And most of it's, I think the upsurge in acoustic string instruments, not that Gibson's Les Paul sales have gone down any, but I think the upsurge, the reason more people are choosing acoustic instruments nowadays, is somewhat a backlash to the 20 or 30 years we've had with these bizarre electrical things happening in instrument building.
Yeah, because people do often associate the instruments being played. Because somebody just the other night mentioned to us, they're like, oh, we went to see so-and-so, and it really didn't sound like the bluegrass that we had in our head, but they were all playing the instruments.
And they're great these days. They get started at amongst younger age. I had a situation at a banjo camp one time. I had a Saturday morning, and I gave all the students an opportunity they could have 30 minutes with an instructor, to get some personalized tips on stuff, And I had 3 guys come in back to back, and they were all young, and they had all just won contests like Merle Fest and this and that one and the other one. And the one guy comes in and he sits down, so I start talking to him about the right hand posture, trying to keep a straight line all the way from your elbows to the end of your fingers so you don't inhibit any of the ligaments and tendons and muscles that are doing this. And, the old Nick Lucas thing of when you're playing, especially from the 5th string to the nut, keeping your thumb on the center of the back of the neck, form on that just sort. So I got him going. And I'd had them play 2 tunes for me when they came in. So the second guy comes in, he plays the same 2 tunes. And all of a sudden I'm working with him on posture a little bit, getting him to get his banjo where it'll rest in between his ribs and his hips, and that way if it gets heavy to him, he can just tilt himself back the way he stands, and just little tips like that. Because I'm telling you, all 3 of the guys could really play. But those 2 guys had played the same 2 tunes, and they had played them just darn near alike. The third one comes in, and he does the same thing. And I just sit there, and I said, do y'all guys all learn from the same tablature or the same instructional videos out there? Whoever just hums out a song, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then try to put that on the neck of your banjo and then try to play rolls out of it, And that's the thing that we've sort of lost in all this stuff. We have lost discernible melodies. We have lost continuity of rhythm. That's why I really don't care. I do most of the stuff I do nowadays is just solo. Because I'm tired of playing with where I just get slammed on the downbeat, where I'm trying to take the accents to a melody line or something. Somebody's trying to hit me with a rhythm instrument right when I'm doing my emphasis on one of those things that I'm doing, and I don't have to listen. I'm old. I don't have to listen to that stuff no more. Well, I was in a lot of situations trying to make a living out of this stuff. You have to do a lot of things that are extremely unpleasant at times.
Well, so let me ask you, Butch, as we're kind of rounding the corner here, and I just want to maybe review some of the things we talked about, but what kind of advice or encouragement would you give to young pickers who like the string band music, who like some of the old Monroe music? I mean, is there a good path to set these folks on so that they can learn some healthy habits and some of the better things of the music?
I wouldn't have any idea. I don't know what's available out there. It's, to me, just, you know, if you pick up an instrument and it tickles your fancy out there a little bit, just follow your heart with it. If you do, within a month, you're going to learn how to tune it. You're going to learn how to strum a pick across it. You're going to learn a couple of 3 chords you can put on it. After 6 months, you'll be a little more fluent than that. 6 months to a year, you'll start finding other people to play around a little bit with. And that's one of the greatest things about the music that exists now. That is the greatest thing about it. It's a communication skill. It's a way somebody from Tokyo gets together with some guy from London and some guy from Minneapolis and some guy from Dallas and another one from New York out under a tree at Bean Blossom, and they go through this spasm playing on all those old tunes. And it's kind of like what Christian people are saying when they say they're sharing fellowship at that time. And it's the communication for that skill, that expression of love and appreciation for your fellow man out there.
Well, I like the point that you made about people playing the melody and not, you know, overbearing the rhythm over the melody and some of these things. And I think I agree with you. I think sometimes that does get lost. People forget, you know, that it is about the melody of the song and the rhythm of the song. And I think that that's a good direction for young pickers to always be mindful of that melody.
Well, it's like that, will the circle be unbroken? Go try to find the real source of something. Go try, you know, sing me Old Joe Clark and put a G note in the chorus. Right. Or for your low note, put a G instead of an E note there. And the fare thee well, Old Joe Clark, fare thee well, I say. So, I mean, try to find the way they were done. When I did that series, when Joanne McGowan, the gal that does my Facebook page and all the YouTube videos and everything that get posted out there and all of that stuff, she wanted me to do this 100-tune challenge a couple of years ago. So I think the first 10 or 15 tunes, I'd play the tune through pretty straight, and then I'd hot dog it a little bit like if I was playing it, I had played when I played in contests when I was young or something like that. And I got to thinking about 10 or 15 tunes into this thing. My God, this stuff is going to be out on me forever. Why should I show a blast of my own ego in there trying to hot dog something up? Do I want to pass that along, or do I want to pass along as close to what I heard when I first heard it in that form to these people when it comes part of playing the tunes or melodies out there? And that became much more important. It's, you know, it's like I said, I'm 73 years old. Everything I've got to show the world, I done showed it to them twice. I don't need to do that anymore. What I'd pass along to young people if I'm going to play a tune for them is I'm going to try to play that melody as close to that melody was when I first heard it. If I'm playing a song that's a melody, I'm going to try to be hitting a note for every syllable that singer is singing on that song when it's being done. It's just, you know, that's just the way that Monroe taught me how to play music.
We were waltzing that night in Kentucky beneath a beautiful harvest moon, and I was the boy that was lucky, but it all ended too soon as I sat there alone in the moonlight. beneath the beautiful harvest moon. And I was the boy that was lucky, but it all ended too soon. As I sat here alone in the moonlight, I see your smiling face, and I long once more for your embrace and that beautiful Kentucky one.
Let me just ask you here as we finish up, what's next for Butch Robbins? I know that you're still active. You're out there. You mentioned you were playing some solo gigs.
Yeah, everything I do is solo now, because I'm just trying to develop that rapport with an audience. You know, I learned from Bill Monroe and Leon Russell. I learned lots about music and putting on shows and stuff like that. And it dawned on me with both of those guys, you know, because somebody's going to come up every time I play, somebody's going to say, play Foggy Mountain Breakdown for me. And I've heard people in the past around fiddlers conventions where in their big pile and somebody asked for Foggy Mountain Breakdown, the banjo player, I'm sick of playing that. I've played it so daggone many times and everything. You know, the tunes are really just vehicles. The tunes don't matter. Or they do matter to some extent, but basically there's an emotional moment happening between the air, between artist, performing artist, and audience. And those songs that we put out are just vehicles for the expression of that emotional moment. So if somebody, it don't bother me if somebody wants to hear Foggy Mountain Breakdown. I got where I do dueling banjos is a sing-along with them. I teach them how to sing that second part, and I play it, and they sing it, I play it, they sing it, you know. But that's not a problem for me. It's like I said, when you're trying to become, that's what I'm trying to learn how to do now, is become a performing artist. And when you got as many of these old tales and lies and gags and things like that that I pull, it's difficult. I'm learning timing. I'm learning which audiences I got that I can play certain things about and make other comments, because I don't ever want anybody to leave feeling bad from something I've done. But you know, that's been what it's all about for me. And plus, it's hard as the dickens. These Blue Ridge music things I do on the Parkway and everything, they last anywhere from 2 to 4 hours long. It is difficult to stand up with a banjo for 2, 3, 4 hours and maintain the attention of the people in that audience.
And just, I might add, even just being alone. You know, I mean, if you got a 4 or 5 piece group, you can rely on the other guys to carry the ball for a little while and some things, you know. But when you're up there by yourself, it's do or die. I like your point about entertaining the audience, and I think, and this is just my opinion, I think I see a lot of groups who focus on the mechanical or the technical aspects about playing. You know, they want to pick something a certain way, or hot picking or whatever, and even too much of that can kind of put an audience to sleep at some point. People want that interaction. They want somebody who's going to interact with them, who's make them feel entertained, who's maybe interesting, maybe a little bit funny. And so I think you're right on the mark. Well,
that's the thing for I had asked a while any suggestions I got for young people. That's part of it, you know. It's not just about you picking. If you want it to be about the picking, hell, there's contests all over. There's Winfield, Kansas. There's Galax, Virginia. There's contests all over the place. You can go play in contests and go through that lunacy of trying to prove that you're better than somebody else.
Starting out as a young picker, I always wanted to sound like somebody else. I would strive to be Doyle Lawson or Jimmy Goodrow or the guys that I looked up to as a young picker. And I found that I was never going to play like them. You know, I learned technique, I learned licks from them. And what I finally had to settle for is I'm only going to play like me. You know, I have to play what I hear or what I interpret. And I guess that's where you get your own style. But
my first encounter with Bill Monroe was Carlton Haney was there. He introduced me to him. And Carlton, it's on video of one of those shows that comes out of Nashville, Tennessee, where they just got a gathering of the country music guys. But Carlton was on there. And he said the first time that I ever met Bill, I was 18. Well, he was wrong. I was 16. And he said, no, I was 15 when that happened. And he said, Bill asked me to play for him and said, when I first started out, I played something like Earl Scruggs. And Bill looked, oh, well, I don't believe I'd play it like that. And I played something that was like Don Reno. Well, I don't believe I'd play it like that. And maybe Bill Emerson or some of those other guys that were kind of heroes to me back in those days, he kept saying, I don't believe I'd play it like that. And I just held up my hands to Carlton and said, what's going on? Carlton looked at me and said, Butch, you got to play it like yourself. And I said, well, how do I do that? And Bill looked at me and he said, well, the first thing you do is learn everything all those other guys did, and then don't do it.
thank you so much, Butch, for joining us here today. Can you tell the folks where they can be able to view some of the videos that you recorded with the Radford University? Also, where they can get a copy of your book, and where they might be able to catch you in the future.
The first thing for the Radford University is just type in Butch Robbins, last name spelled with one B. It used to be if you used two on a Google search, you'd get a real estate agent in Jekyll Island, Georgia. But no, anyhow, Butch Robbins and Radford University in a Google search, and it'll take you there to where the videos are. And they're actually in the McConnell libraries. Like I said, they're free. There are 5 episodes of it that run anywhere from an hour to an hour, 15, 20 minutes. And it's what I know about what I know, which was also the name of my book, and it's available. The lady who does my Facebook page out there has got a Facebook store for it. It can be either bought there or on the butchrobbins.com site. And as far as where I'll be playing, that Facebook page is about as good as keeping up with that as anything there is out there for me. She tries to make everybody aware of where I'm going to be when I'm going to be in the general area here playing somewhere. And thank y'all for having me today. This is I don't do very many of these that are as disciplined as I actually have to keep on track answering folks' questions. So I appreciate your tolerance.
Well, Butch, thank you so much for your time here today. We're talking to Butch Robbins, former bluegrass boy and a great historian about bluegrass music. We've enjoyed some of your stories and some of the history that you've given us. We hope that you folks at home have enjoyed our interview here today with Butch Robbins. We're going to have more interviews in the future. And we just wanted to thank you again for being part of the Davis Bradley Old Time Radio Show.